Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Rangers review special. As we all know, the club are on the hunt for a new manager to replace Michael Beale. There's been a host of names linked with the job. The one front runner, you could say, at this moment in time, along with one or two others, is former Rangers defender Kevin Muscat. And I'm delighted to say we're joined not only by Adam. It's always great to see your smiley face, Adam, but we're also joined by Dan Orlowitz, all the way over in Japan. He's a sports journalist with the Japan Times to give us a little bit of insight into Kevin Muscat, the manager. Of course, he is in charge of Yokohama F Marinos and has been so for the last couple of seasons. Dan, thank you very much for coming on.
Thanks for having me. Talking J-League on a Friday night can never turn an opportunity like that down. And it's amazing that 2.5 years after this happened, the first time, sort of here we are again.
Yeah, absolutely. We're speaking off air there, Dan. You've been covered Japanese football for quite some time now, haven't you?
Yeah, that's right. I've been following the league almost as long as I've been in Japan, which is getting close to 17 years now. J-League national team down to the women's league and amateurs. I love it. It's an amazing it's a footballing nation that I don't think gets enough credit for being so, but I think that you're starting to see that with there's just the number of Japanese players who are going to Europe and excelling and the performance of the national team at the World Cup. So it's a great time to be following the game here.
Yeah, absolutely. So Kevin Muscat then, me and Adam were talking on the briefing video earlier on. He certainly seems to be the front runner, but Adam's warming to him. It's fair to say about his credentials, about taking over at Rangers. But we're interested in hearing how he has got on as a manager over there in Japan, Dan. He's been fairly successful by all accounts.
Yes, that's right. He came on in the middle of the 2021 season when Ange Postecoglou, as you know, left for Celtic. He's done very well with this Marinos squad. They won the J-League First Division last year, 2022, and right now they're still in the thick of things, second place, 4 points back in the semifinals of the J-League Cup and competing in the Asian Champions League. They're 2 games in. So he's done very well with a squad that has struggled with a lot of injury issues, a lot of players who have left for Europe, which is a challenge that a lot of clubs here have had to deal with in recent seasons. But I think he's taken very well to the position, and Marinos fans are certainly big fans of his.
Yeah, it's. What's the style of football that he plays over there at Yokohama? Of course, he enjoyed success in his native Australia, Melbourne Victory prior. Had a bit of an indifferent spell in Belgium, a difficult time by all accounts. But what sort of football are the fans been treated to under Kevin Muscat over there?
He has picked up the baton that Postecoglou handed him and run with it and tried to evolve that system, very attacking centric. This is not a team that sits back and pushes back on the counter. They definitely plays with that same sort of all 11 players are attacking players, with a goalkeeper who can push out and be a bit more aggressive in terms of feeding the ball, in terms of even playing sort of a sweeper role. You have fullbacks who at times will just convert to midfielders and push up the field. He's one of my colleagues has described the team as that they're problem solvers. I think they're always working and always communicating and trying to sort of decode whatever's in front of them. And when it works, which it does most of the time, you do get a very attractive attacking style, and they score a lot of goals with flair. This isn't a team, they're not sort of poking it in from 5 yards out. They're not getting these sort of gruesome headers. They play a very engaging style that is seen as one of the most entertaining in the league.
Adam, that sounds like a complete opposite to what we've been used to watching this season.
Yeah, it does, and maybe for a few more seasons than we'd like to admit. I'm interested, Dan, in terms of there's obviously we can't get away with it from the comparisons with Ange Postecoglou. Maybe not ideal for a Rangers show, but could you give us an insight into, I guess, how much Kevin Muscat has changed. I'm led to believe there's quite a lot in terms of players that have left since he joined. It's not just a case of sort of plugging and playing someone else's tactics and getting success, is it? Has there been quite a bit of change in the squad?
I mean, the squad has certainly gone through a lot, and he has really had to instill this mentality of sort of next one up. I think he cares a lot about his players. He's had players who have dealt with some fairly gruesome injuries these last couple of seasons. Ryo Miyaichi, who you may know from being a former Arsenal signee and playing a lot of his European time in Germany, but he had another ACL injury when he was on national team duty last year, and you could tell that Kevin was just sort of gutted at that. And it's I think he has embraced his role as not just a coach, but sort of a mentor in the squad. And even though obviously he's coming from a different culture and you have the language barrier and everything, like you can tell that there's a family aspect to it. I think that he has, he doesn't have all the tools that Ange Postecoglou had in 2019. And he's instead had to bring up new players and help develop them, and especially the younger players. And I think that if Marinos had been able to sign some, I want to say bigger talents, but if they had been able to sort of splash the pot a little in the transfer market, I don't think they would be as far out of first place as they are. I mean, it's a 4-point gap, but with 5 games left, it's not insurmountable, especially in Japan. But he's taken the squad he has, and I think he's done the best that he can with it. And that was in 2021. When he was obviously getting used to things and adjusting, and in 2022, they won the damn thing. It isn't an easy league to win at all, so I think he deserves full credit for it.
Yeah. You want to jump in there, Adam? No.
Yeah, I was just going to say you mentioned there, I guess, language barriers and culture, etc. How difficult is it still for English speaking coaches to go into Japan? It's obviously a very unique culture and environment. Is it relatively straightforward, I think, for someone like Kevin Muscat to go in there and get respect and be able to impart his wisdom there? Are there other challenges in there that might be applicable to him coming into Rangers that he has to deal with? Maybe structural in clubs, maybe lack of finances, maybe media and pressure, etc. What's he like at dealing with all of those things?
Well, I think that, and I think we saw this with Ange when he went over there, that Ange was sort of unleashed in that he's no longer speaking through an interpreter. He can be a bit more, I want to say he can be a bit more honest with the media, but I think that the media over there is much different than you're facing in Japan. I can tell you that when it comes to the post-game press conferences, for example, most of the questions that journalists here are fielding are tactical minutia, getting really into the nitty-gritty of it and substitutions and formation stuff. And I think we as English-speaking journalists do tend to go for more the big picture philosophical questions. And sometimes, I'll ask a question or a colleague will ask, and you'll see the beat writers just sigh because they don't want to go off on the edge. And I think that Kevin, like Ange, like Peter Klimowski, who's a former protege of both of them, and he's now in charge of FC Tokyo, you do see the Australian coaches have a way of speaking to the press and how they communicate their ideas, and they all believe very much in what they're trying to accomplish, and that's a point that they get across over and over and over again. When it comes to speaking through an interpreter, it's a challenge. I think you have to change your mindset because you're not just speaking to the players directly. The players obviously understand English to some extent, but to get your point across, like, you do have to change what you say. And in order to do that, you have to change how you think. Yeah. And I think that he's done a good job of adjusting to that. I know when he arrived in Japan, he did have a reputation vis-a-vis his personality that I think stems from his playing days, including at Rangers. But I think, I don't want to say he's mellowed out, but I think he's done well to adjust to coaching in Japan, I should say, where you can't necessarily go off about a refereeing decision and not get fined for it. There's certain ways in which foreign coaches here are expected to conduct themselves, and I think he's been a great ambassador for the club in that respect.
But see, when you say that, Dan, of course, he earned quite a bit of a reputation when he was playing down south in particular. Was a bit tame, I think, that season he was at Rangers. But as a manager, can fans, I mean, the Yokohama fans, they can expect to see him jumping up and out? Is he very animated on the touchline, or is he one of those that's very calm and assured?
You know what? I wish that he had one of those step counters when he was on the touchline, because I'd love to see how many steps he gets each game. And don't get me wrong, I mean, I think that when I talk about sort of adjusting himself, maybe being a bit calmer when it comes to media relations and that sort of things, I mean, the passion is still there. It's just, I think that sometimes foreign managers do get frustrated, and you can see that in how they are on the pitch. And he will get very animated during a game. And I will say, I mean, he's very passionate about Rangers even today. It's been how many years since he was a player? I remember talking to him after it was some game earlier this season. I think Rangers were playing Celtic that night, and it was like a 8:00 kickoff here, or 8:30 kickoff. And so we're talking, and he says, "Oh, I got to go. I got to catch the second half." Yeah, like that. That's just who he is. And I think he's still, and I think that if he were to go to a club in an English speaking environment where, again, you're not speaking through interpreters and with media officers who are sort of hovering a little close, I think that you'll see he's Kevin Muscat is still Kevin Muscat.
Yeah. The Japanese league, it's a competitive league, isn't it? I mean, there's not one team that usually runs away with things every year.
That's correct. There are a number of the bigger clubs, Yokohama F Marinos being one of them, just because they are backed by Nissan, partially owned by City Football Group. You have Vissel Kobe, who obviously were able to afford Andres Iniesta, David Villa, and Lucas Podolski for as long as they were at the club. Urawa Reds, who are backed by Mitsubishi, Kawasaki Frontale, who are owned by Fujitsu and have won the league title 4 of the previous 6 seasons, and they came second last year. These are the clubs that are considered big clubs, but you always have to be afraid of the clubs that are in 16th, 17th, 18th place. You can't take any game for granted, and even the clubs that are mid-table or even struggling in the lower third are still on a good day capable of playing really challenging football and taking it to the opponent, no matter who it is. So it's a dangerous league. Whenever I'm asked, by people who want to take a punt or do some betting or whatever, I say don't. I will never recommend betting on the J League. That is a quick way to lose your money because it will surprise you.
Yeah.
In terms of, as Derek said, we've not really been used to all-out attacking football at Rangers for a while. Could you give us a little bit of a flavour, I guess, of one thing we struggled with very much is creating good quality chances and also finishing those chances off. In terms of his style, how would the front three set up? What does he like to do there in terms of that? Is it a front three, or is it more of a sort of, I don't know, a striker with 3 in behind? How does that work mostly?
It tends to be. It does depend on the game and on the situation. I mean, I think a lot of the time you are looking at closer to a front three, or it'll be a 4-2-3-1. But you've got a lot of pressure coming down the wings and then going inside. But you also do have a lot of playmakers who are capable of pushing up the field and creating chances. I think that one of the hallmarks of his football is that the ball is always moving.
Yep.
The players are not staying in Kevin Muscat's Marinos. The players are not standing still and waiting for the pass to come to them. They're always in motion, and I think that is what has allowed this team to succeed over the last couple of years. Is that he's always got them moving.
Yeah. In terms of the Rangers squad at the minute, we're not exactly set up for high intensity, high pressing, wide play. Are there any examples, putting you on the spot a little bit, but off the top of your head, is there maybe some players that have been moved into other roles that maybe you felt they weren't suitable for, and they were able to adapt into exactly what Muscat has said? Or is he more a case of I'll bring in players that specifically suit what I need?
I mean, I don't want to get. I'm like having trouble sort of thinking up a good example, but I will say that I think that because he did inherit Ange's Marinos, and Ange was, his style of play and Kevin Muscat's were very similar, and I think that the biggest cleaning out of the Marinos squad came in Ange's first off season when the players who didn't work were let go, and he brought in more players who could. And I think that since then, the mentality of how of who Marinos have brought in terms of signings, I think, I mean, the best striker that they have right now is the Brazilian Anderson Lopez, and like that's an example of the kind of player who is really perfect for what Marinos are trying to do, and without him, they wouldn't have won the title last year. There were rumors that he was going to leave this summer, and if they lost him, honestly, I wouldn't have given them a shot at winning the title this year. But he's still here, and they're still in the picture, which speaks volumes as to his importance to the squad.
Has he been linked with moves away before, Dan? Is there a feeling that he might be destined for pastures new at some point down the line?
I think that this current discussion is the probably the biggest in terms of transfer rumors. I mean, I think that his ambitions to return to Europe are clear. I don't think he's tried to hide that anyway. I think that that's the ambition of any football manager, is to play sort of at the top level, or to coach at the top level, I should say. And obviously, as you mentioned at the start, his time in Belgium was less than spectacular. And I think that any coach who has that experience, you want a mulligan, you want to go back and do it better. And this is starting to pick up some momentum in Japan. There hasn't been too much chatter yet. Obviously, it's still the middle of the season. They've got a lot on their plates. I'm not going to get into sort of any speculation as to whether or not this will actually happen. But it's. I think you look at what happened with Ange. You look at what's happened, at the club since then, and the success that Kevin Muscat has brought to Marinos in these last couple of years. It's not surprising that he would get interest.
Yeah, interesting. Adam, do you want to jump in there?
Yeah, I was going to say, what's the structure like above the manager at Yokohama, Dan? I know you've mentioned that obviously City Football Group are involved. They've not got a majority stake or anything, but is that sort of sporting director, head of director of football, head of recruitment thing? Is that a key part for Yokohama?
Yeah, they do have a sporting director whose name escapes me at the moment, and a pretty good scouting team. And I think that being able to use the City Football Group's scouting network has definitely helped them in recent seasons. That is a resource that not every club in Japan has.
Yeah,
I think that it did take them a while to find their identity, and Marinos were sort of lost in the weeds for a little in the mid 2010s, but right now, I mean, I think that they've done a great job of bringing in not just good Japanese players putting them sort of into the right slots, but also foreign players who can contribute to the squad, which again we don't always see in Japan. I think we sometimes refer to the transfer market as the foreigner vending machine. You hit a button, you get a Brazilian, and hopefully he can score 10, 15 goals for you. And if not, then the next window comes around and you go and put in your money and press the button again.
Interesting. Like I say, folks, Kevin Muscat, heavily linked, I think, ever since the news broke that Michael Beale was dismissed as Rangers manager. That was a fascinating insight there, Dan. Thank you very much for coming on and giving us a little bit of flavour about Kevin Muscat, the manager. Really appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks for having me. And I mean, we'll see how this turns out. I'm as curious as anyone else as to what's going to happen over these next few weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. If you want to read more of Dan's works or find him on social media, he's put his Twitter bio on there, and we'll stick it in the description as well. If you want to keep up to date with all the latest goings on in Japanese football, then Dan is the man. Right, thank you, Dan. Thank you, Adam. Hopefully you've enjoyed that little video, folks, and we'll speak to you a little later on. Bye for now.